In the depths of Kunwu Mountain, where ancient seals groaned beneath the weight of forgotten ages, fate was already beginning to shift. What had once been a silent battlefield of suppressed demons was stirring again, and those who stepped within would soon learn that not every treasure wished to be claimed. If you enjoy my way of explaining and storytelling, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really motivates me to keep creating. Red mist roared through the vast hall like a living tide, seething and coiling in suffocating waves. Within that crimson tempest stood a dozen colossal pillars of flame, each entwined by a scarlet dragon whose blazing body spiraled upward in silent ferocity. From their maws poured torrents of blood-red vapor, all of it converging upon the enormous cauldron that dominated the very heart of the chamber. The cauldron rose nearly 20 meters high, austere in its design, devoid of extravagant ornamentation. Yet its sheer scale alone placed it among the grandest furnaces Han Li had ever laid eyes upon. What truly astonished him, however, was the transformation wrought by the red mist. The relentless heat had scorched the entire cauldron into a uniform incandescent crimson, obliterating every trace of its original hue. Even standing 100 meters away, Han Li could feel the heat pressing against him like the breath of a volcano, heavy and oppressive. From the moment he stepped into the hall, his throat had turned as parched as desert sand, and his skin prickled as though countless burning needles were driving into his flesh. Had the protective spiritual light not flared into existence around him, at once forming a translucent barrier, he would have suffered grievously. Yet instead of fear, exhilaration surged through him. His gaze pierced the inferno and locked onto the cauldron without hesitation. It stood utterly still, yet low peals of thunder rumbled from within its depths, reverberating faintly through the hall. Drawing upon his long experience in tool refinement, Han Li immediately recognized the signs it was in the midst of refinement. At that realization, certainty dawned in his heart. He would not be leaving empty-handed. Drawing a shallow breath, he shifted like a wisp of smoke, slipping between the streams of red mist with effortless precision as he advanced toward the towering vessel. When he reached a distance of 20 meters, his pace slowed. He began to circle the cauldron deliberately, step by measured step, his spiritual sense brushing against it, feeling the astonishing density of fire-attributed spiritual power radiating from within. Whatever lay inside had endured untold years of refinement. It was impossible that it had remained unchanged. Though curiosity stirred fiercely within him, Han Li did not act rashly. He had survived this long precisely because he never allowed impatience to cloud his judgment. After circling the cauldron more than a dozen times, his eyes lifted, scanning the rest of the hall with thoughtful calm. For the pillars and cauldron to have operated for such immeasurable years, there had to be an eternally active spell formation sustaining them. And since its purpose was to regulate the hall's operation rather than conceal itself, it would not be hidden too deeply. As long as he located its controlling mechanism and destroyed it, the inferno would subside and the treasure would be his for the taking. His gaze sharpened. Without warning, he raised a hand and flicked his sleeve. A streak of golden light 3 meters long and dazzling as a fallen sunbeam shot toward an unremarkable corner of the hall. A thunderous boom exploded outward. That corner erupted in a blaze of golden radiance. The flaming pillars trembled violently, their streams of red mist faltering, then abruptly ceasing. When the light faded, a gaping hole 3 meters wide marred the stone. Fragments of shattered formation plates lay scattered around it, and a small golden sword hovered lazily above the debris, humming faintly. Han Li smiled faintly and made a casual gesture. The flying sword let out a sharp cry as it streaked back into his sleeve. Deprived of replenishment, the red mist began to thin, gradually dissolving into nothingness. Yet Han Li did not immediately approach the cauldron. Instead, his attention shifted downward. Blue light flickered within his eyes, his bright-sight spirit eyes activating, and surprise flickered across his face. 100 meters beneath the hall lay a vast mass of molten red, an immense pool of earth fire. The entire structure had been built directly above it. No wonder the formation had endured for so many ages without exhaustion. Maintaining his enhanced vision, he turned his gaze back to the cauldron, intent on discerning what lay within. What he saw made him pause. The object inside radiated a crimson even fiercer than the earth fire below. Before he could examine it further, the cauldron began to tremble violently. A sharp crackle rang out, and a layer of scarlet blaze erupted around it once more. Han Li's mouth parted in astonishment, but only for a breath. The shock swiftly transformed into pleased surprise. Over the course of countless years, the object within had absorbed the essence of the earth fire to a terrifying degree. What had once been an ordinary magic tool had undergone a profound metamorphosis, ascending into a grand fire-attributed treasure. Prolonged exposure to concentrated elemental chi could indeed produce such miracles, but it was an outcome governed by coincidence and staggering luck. In ages past, certain sects had attempted to replicate this phenomenon deliberately, hoping to forge supreme treasures through time itself. They had abandoned the effort soon enough. The method demanded not merely time, but the unbroken dedication of successive generations. Even then, success was pitifully rare, and when it did occur, the improvement scarcely justified the colossal expenditure. As for this cauldron, Han Li was certain its transformation had never been intentional. Most likely the cultivators overseeing it had been unable to halt the refinement at a critical juncture. With no better recourse, they activated the spell formation to sustain the process before abandoning the mountain, perhaps believing they would one day return. That day clearly had never come. As these thoughts passed through his mind, the protective spiritual light around him flared brighter, responding to the steadily intensifying heat. Without hesitation, Han Li slapped his storage pouch. A bundle of blue formation flags appeared in his grasp. His figure blurred. The flags shot toward various corners of the hall, embedding themselves in precise locations. In the next instant, he stood before the cauldron once more. After a brief examination, he muttered an incantation. A dome of blue light unfurled, enveloping both himself and the cauldron. Within the ice-attributed barrier, the scorching air cooled dramatically, frost beginning to form along the edges of stone. Han Li then opened his spirit beast pouch. A dozen six-winged frost centipedes emerged, their crystalline bodies gleaming with frigid menace. They darted nimbly through the air, circling the cauldron before gathering above it in a tight formation, their mandibles twitching as they accumulated power. Seeing this, Han Li relaxed slightly. He brought his palms together. Purple flames bloomed across them like sinister blossoms. Reaching forward, he invoked their power. A massive purple hand manifested above the cauldron and descended without hesitation, gripping the lid. The cauldron shuddered violently. The surrounding inferno surged skyward, condensing in a blink into a blazing scarlet bird that shrieked as it hurled itself at the purple hand. A curious explosion rang out as they collided. Scarlet and violet light intertwined chaotically. For a moment, the flaming bird managed to halt the hand's descent. Han Li's expression shifted subtly. At his soft command, the frost centipedes responded instantly. Streams of white glacial chi poured from their mouths, engulfing the flame bird, the cauldron, and the purple hand alike. Simultaneously, Han Li formed a spell seal and struck the purple hand. It swelled to twice its size. Empowered by surging glacial chi, it crushed the flame bird with overwhelming force and seized the cauldron once more. Bereft of a master, it could no longer resist. With a dull bang, the lid was flung 10 meters into the air. Blinding red light erupted from within. Just as Han Li prepared to peer inside, a piercing, unpleasant screech tore through the air. A streak of scarlet light shot out like lightning racing toward the ceiling. It tore straight through 2 centipedes before they could react. With a heavy thud, it struck the blue barrier overhead. In mere breaths, it burned a melting aperture through the defense. Han Li's heart jolted. He flicked his fingers in rapid succession. A dozen azure sword streaks shot forth with flawless precision, striking the escaping light. Each impact dimmed it further. Wave after wave battered it, until it wavered on the brink of collapse. Sensing imminent doom, it twisted sharply, attempting escape in another direction. But a flash of purple light appeared behind it. The enormous hand seized it with lightning speed. Moments later, it returned to Han Li, clutching its captive. Below, the cauldron had gone silent. The thunder ceased. The flames vanished. Under the centipede's glacial chi, it had become encased in crystalline ice. Yet Han Li's attention was fixed solely upon the struggling light within the purple hand. He stared at it, then drew a sharp breath. "Great Sun Essence Fire," he murmured in astonishment. But before the words fully settled, a sweet, achingly familiar voice echoed within his mind. "It is not Great Sun Essence Fire, but its equally renowned counterpart, the Great Yin True Flame, one of the three true spiritual flames of the mortal realm." Happiness welled silently within Han Li's heart, though his expression remained as composed as still water. In an even tone, he asked Silvermoon, "You've awakened." Her voice emerged slowly within his mind, faint yet clear like moonlight filtering through drifting clouds. "I awoke the moment Master stepped into this hall. After years of recuperation, I have only barely managed to stir. I fear I will not be able to assist Master for some time. Has your spiritual sense suffered damage?" A subtle discord lingered beneath her words. Han Li's brows knit faintly, an almost imperceptible crease forming between them. A soft, forced chuckle echoed in his consciousness. "Nothing of the sort. While I slumbered, I recovered a fragment of my memories. It is only somewhat unsettling." Han Li raised an eyebrow, genuine surprise flickering in his eyes. "You recovered part of your memories?" A long sigh followed, tinged with melancholy. "Yes, and yet they feel as though they belong to someone else entirely." A brief silence settled between them. At last Han Li spoke gently, his voice steady as ever. "It is a blessing that your past has begun to return. Given time, perhaps all of it will resurface. Perhaps—" Silvermoon murmured softly, her voice trailing into thought. After a moment, Han Li shifted his gaze toward the scarlet firebird struggling within the purple hand. Its feathers of flame rippled with lifelike brilliance. Its eyes gleamed with startling intelligence. "You mentioned this is the Great Yin True Flame. Is that correct?" Silvermoon's tone grew more focused. "There is no mistake. That is a ball of Yin Flame essence. If memory serves, this should be the lowest grade of its kind. Otherwise, it would not have been subdued so easily by mere sword chi. Still, it is fortunate that this is not the Great Sun Essence Flame." She paused before continuing, her voice regaining a trace of its former clarity. "The Great Yin True Flame is presently weaker than your purple apex flames, having only recently awakened. Yet it possesses a terrifying potential for extreme cold. If it had been the Great Sun Essence Flame, even the lowest grade would have manifested its full destructive power and escaped with ease. When properly nurtured, however, the Great Yin True Flame will surpass your purple apex flames entirely. It is worthy of its title, one of the three true spiritual flames of the mortal realm." Han Li's gaze remained fixed upon the firebird, doubt flickering within his eyes. For all its intelligence, he sensed no overwhelming aura of supremacy. "And these three true spiritual flames, I have never heard of them." A bitter chuckle rang out. "I have seen them once before, but the details elude me. My mind is still in disarray." A thoughtful gleam passed through Han Li's eyes. "If the notion existed within your memories, it should hold truth. Tell me, can this yin flame be fused with my purple apex flames?" Silvermoon hesitated briefly before answering. "Fusion should be possible, but it would be wiser to allow the Great Yin True Flame to devour the purple apex flames. Instead, it has already developed intelligence. To extinguish it would be wasteful, and there is even the risk of backlash." Han Li nodded slowly. "That is reasonable. However, before any of that, I must first refine the True Flame. Given its intelligence, that will not be simple." Silvermoon's tone lightened faintly. "If fortune permits, you should also allow it to consume a strand of Great Sun Essence Flame. The convergence of yin and yang would give birth to power beyond imagination. Such might may have never before existed in the mortal realm." Han Li frowned slightly, a trace of helpless amusement in his voice. That would indeed be extraordinary. But Monarch Soul Divergence once said, such a flame is beyond the reach of cultivators like us. That may be so, Silvermoon replied thoughtfully. Then, with a note of cautious speculation, she added, yet now that you possess the great Yin True Flame, you may be able to use it to restrain the other. Their natures oppose one another. Hanley felt his heart stir at the possibility. Yet after a moment he shook his head. That is a matter for another day. I do not even know when I will find the opportunity to properly refine this flame. A light giggle echoed in his mind. Then, Master, should you not first seal it beneath additional restrictions before storing it away? If you grow careless, it may yet escape. Hanley chuckled softly. Naturally. With a thought, the massive purple hand floated upward above his head. He flicked a finger. A slender arc of lightning leapt forth and struck the struggling flame. In an instant, the scarlet blaze, wrapped in violet fire, was compressed into a brilliant sphere of golden radiance. Silvermoon laughed softly at the sight. It was the very same method he had once used to seal the celestial ice pearl, only now his control was far more refined. Hanley withdrew a scarlet jade box and carefully placed the sealed flame within before storing it away. Only then did his attention return to the frozen cauldron. Stroking his chin, he mused aloud. It is rather strange that a yin flame emerged from a furnace steeped in smoldering earth fire. Could it be that the original material possessed an innate glacial nature, and that this flame was born of yin-yang? Convergence. Silvermoon offered no answer, evidently equally puzzled. Hanley's gaze sharpened. With a flick of his sleeve, a bolt of lightning struck the cauldron, spreading instantly into a net of crackling gold. Thunder roared. Lightning flashed. The net tightened and shattered the crystalline ice encasing it. The cauldron stood revealed. Hanley examined it calmly, then rose slowly into the air until he hovered 3 meters above it. Though flight was restricted within the hall, he forced his ascent through sheer cultivation alone, a temporary defiance of the lingering formation. The crimson glow had faded. Its interior lay exposed. His expression shifted subtly. With a gesture, a gust of wind surged into the cauldron and drew forth a shining object. It circled once in the air before settling into his palm. It was a crystal, roughly the size of a fist, warm to the touch, like fine jade, yet faintly pliant when pressed. Hanley frowned. What could this be? Silvermoon answered calmly, there is no need to dwell on its origin. Whatever material it once was, millennia of refinement would have transformed it completely. Yet since the great Yin True Flame emerged from within, it cannot be ordinary. Indeed. Hanley smiled faintly. When time allows, I shall examine it thoroughly. With a flash of light, the crystal vanished into his storage pouch. He gave the cauldron another careful inspection, ensuring nothing remained hidden within. Then he formed an incantation gesture and struck it with a red spell seal. The cauldron trembled violently. Its massive body flickered with light and rapidly shrank. In the span of a breath, it had reduced to a half-foot-tall miniature resting upon the ground, releasing a series of clear resonant chimes. Its lid flew through the air of its own accord, shrinking as it returned to its rightful place. Once whole, the cauldron's ringing grew bright and jubilant, almost as if it were expressing delight. When Hanley perceived its intelligence, his eyes lit with unmistakable fervor. With a sweep of his sleeve, azure mist lifted the tiny cauldron into his hand. He studied it closely. A trace of excitement flushed his features. Forming another incantation gesture, he struck its lid with azure light. The cauldron glowed brilliantly red. Its lid sprang open, and from within burst countless fist-sized flame birds, each grotesque and entirely scarlet. At a single mental command, they scattered throughout the hall, weaving through the air with astonishing agility. Breathing streams of scorching fire. This was the accumulated essence of earth fire gathered across countless years. Each flame bird was no weaker than a true fire-attributed spirit bird. Delight rose within him. Though the tri-flame fan surpassed it in might, it consumed an enormous amount of magic power. This cauldron, by contrast, offered a far more sustainable means in battle. He promptly stored it away. Yet just as he prepared to depart, his gaze lingered upon the dozen scarlet pillars. A thought stirred. Without hesitation, he released his flying swords. In streaks of cold azure light, they sliced through the pillars at their bases. One by one, the towering fire dragon pillars crashed down. Though not sentient like the cauldron they had channeled earth fire for innumerable years, the density of fire chi they contained was astonishing. Even if nothing else, they would prove invaluable as rare materials. After sweeping the hall once more to ensure nothing had been overlooked, Han Li finally departed with a faint smile, setting off to search the remaining buildings of the area. Unfortunately, it seemed the heavens had already granted him the entirety of his fortune within that hall. Aside from a few commonplace jade slips on tool refinement, he discovered nothing else worthy of note. Han Li was not in the least surprised by the absence of further spoils. To reap such immense gains within so remote and unremarkable a location was already a blessing that defied expectation. Half a day later, after combing through the final structure, he returned to the stone wall at the entrance. His gaze lingered upon the white light barrier before him, and for the first time, a trace of hesitation surfaced in his otherwise tranquil expression. He had finished earlier than anticipated. That meant he could venture elsewhere, search other halls, probe deeper secrets. But such opportunity carried its own dangers. Who could say that others had not also concluded their explorations ahead of schedule? Who could say they would not harbor the same intent? Old Devil Qian did not concern him, nor did the elders of the sacred poison sect, but the forerunners who had first entered Kunwu Mountain. Those were another matter entirely. He had little doubt they would strike without a word upon seeing him. If he remained here and waited several days for the seal to stabilize, he could likely return without obstruction. It was the safer path, yet the thought left him faintly dissatisfied. A low chuckle escaped him. Would the others not eventually converge upon Spirit Metal Hall regardless? So much time had already passed. Those who had targeted the most significant locations within Kunwu Mountain would surely have encountered the first wave of cultivators by now. It was highly probable that battle had already erupted. If chaos was already unfolding, would it not be wiser to move within that chaos? After all, he had uncovered something as astonishing as the great yin true flame within the seemingly insignificant spirit metal hall. Who could say what other treasures lay hidden in places overlooked? With his current cultivation and abilities, even if several late nascent soul cultivators attacked simultaneously, escape would not be beyond him. Having reached that conclusion, hesitation vanished. Without further deliberation, he drew forth the tri-flame fan. With a single effortless sweep, the white barrier dissolved like frost beneath the morning sun. Flames flickered briefly in the air before fading into nothingness. Han Li stepped forward and descended the stairway. Within a vast hall suffused with faint blue radiance, the large-headed eccentric and the elder devil stood back to back with an elderly early nascent soul cultivator. They were surrounded. 8 crimson ghosts circled them, their forms grotesque and ferocious, their hollow eyes burning with baleful light. Each exhaled dense streams of yin-qi that rolled through the chamber like frigid mist from the underworld. Their clawed hands slashed outward, releasing pitch-black streaks from every direction. A swirling sea of grey yin-qi enveloped the trio, pressing inward like a tightening vice. Yet no matter how savage the yin-qi, nor how razor-sharp the claw streaks, they could not pierce the shimmering barriers of light shielding the 3 cultivators. Treasures flashed. Divine abilities roared. The trio retaliated relentlessly. But their efforts bore little fruit. Whether smashed to fragments or cleaved in two, the crimson ghosts reformed almost instantly, their bodies condensing from yin-qi as though they had never been struck. Their aura showed no sign of diminishing. They were like undying specters. At that moment, the elderly cultivator clapped his hands together and thrust them skyward. A chain of scarlet fireballs shot forth, exploding among the fiends and reducing them to drifting wisps. Yet as before, the ghosts reassembled in the blink of an eye and lunged once more at the protective light barrier. Anxiety crept into the old man's voice. Seventh Uncle Elder Han, this cannot continue. These fiends have nourished their yin qi for untold ages. They have clearly reached the yin soul condensation stage. Ordinary techniques cannot harm them. Only supreme yang treasures may prove effective. The eccentric snorted sharply. Yin soul condensation stage. No, these are merely doppelgangers of a ghost monarch. Unless we annihilate them all at once, they will endlessly reform. And I do not possess such power. We must locate its true body. All of them are duplicates, the old man exclaimed in shock. Indeed, were they truly at yin soul condensation, we would have exhausted them by now. This ghost monarch seeks to wear us down before striking the final blow. As he spoke, the elder devil calmly gestured. A small black sword whistled through the air, cleaving another ghost apart. The old man cast a wary glance at the roiling grey mist. So that is the case. It is regrettable that 15th brother perished to the black shadow snake on the first level. His great yang abilities would have been invaluable here. The eccentric's expression darkened slightly. That could not be helped. Who would have foreseen a demon serpent capable of burrowing into shadow itself? By the time it struck from within his own shadow, it was too late even for me. Its venom was so vicious that nothing we possessed could halt the decay. The old man sighed. I do not intend complaint. It is only, this devil-suppressing pagoda is profoundly strange. Constructed upside down, layer upon layer of formidable demon ghosts. We have spent so much time, yet we have only reached the 7th level. Elder Han, there are 9 floors here. What horrors await below? Can we truly continue? The eccentric's eyes flashed coldly. What is there to fear? The greater the devil suppressed here, the greater the chance that a divine spirit treasure lies at its core. Only such treasures could imprison entities feared even by the ancient cultivators. Or would you have our clan's centuries of ambition crumble into dust? The old man lowered his head at once. 7th uncle speaks rightly. I was overly timid. At that moment, the elder devil's voice cut through the tension. I have found the ghost monarch. Where? The old man asked eagerly. But before he could answer, he suddenly let out a startled exclamation. A muffled explosion echoed from the distance. Light flared at the hall's entrance. 4 figures emerged. The sacred poison sect elders froze upon seeing the crimson ghosts whirling within the yin qi, and the 3 cultivators besieged at their center. The green-marked cultivator Hua Tianqi stared sharply. Ye Yuesheng, you live. So it was the Ye clan who broke the seal. Recognition flickered in his eyes as he identified the 7th uncle. The 3 trapped cultivators' expressions turned grim upon seeing the newcomers. They were still entangled with the ghostly assault. A fleeting gloom passed over the eccentric's face before he spoke calmly. So it is fellow Taoist Hua. I did not expect the sacred poison sect to act so swiftly. Why choose the devil-suppressing pagoda over other locations? Hua Tianqi watched as the eccentric casually destroyed another ghost. He chuckled coldly. We might ask you the same. You vanished for centuries feigning death only to reappear as a late nascent soul cultivator. Should the righteous and devilish Tao learn of this, I fear the world will not remain quiet. At that instant, a worried voice transmission reached him. Senior Marshal Brother Hua, could they also know of the treasure? According to their sect founders' cryptic records, a great treasure lay within the devil-suppressing pagoda. The description was vague, but temptation had been enough. They had advanced swiftly through the first few levels, surprised to detect others ahead of them. They had not expected anyone to prioritize this fiend-infested place. Yet they had pressed forward confidently, believing their superior numbers sufficient. They had not anticipated the presence of a late nascent soul cultivator. If not for the ghosts binding them in battle, Hua Tianqi would have retreated without hesitation. A trio that included such a powerhouse was no enemy their group of 4 could safely confront. Suppressing his unease, he transmitted back, I cannot say. Perhaps they know no more than we. The eccentric's lips curved faintly. It seems fellow Taoist Hua does not intend to withdraw. A chilling glint surfaced in his eyes. He opened his mouth, A streak of silver shot forth and vanished. In the next instant, argent light exploded from a distant corner of the hall, accompanied by a furious roar. A vague grey figure materialized, indistinct yet oppressive. From its mouth it spat a thumb-sized grey pearl, intercepting the silver pitchfork. It snarled as it was forced backward, its true form revealed at last. The ghost monarch. The newcomers hesitated, observing in silence. The elder devil waved his sleeve. A pitch-black mirror appeared in his grasp. He aimed it at the ghost monarch. A beam of black light erupted forth, sweeping across the chamber. The ghostly doppelgangers were dragged into its path and shredded into nothingness, amid wailing shrieks, torn apart as though by a tempest of invisible blades. With the ghost monarch's true body suppressed by the silver pitchfork, the duplicates could no longer regenerate. Yet their destruction only thickened the surrounding yin-chi, which surged inward to form an even denser prison around the three cultivators. Even the mirror's incisive black light could not penetrate it. Hua Tianqi's expression finally darkened. The situation was far worse than he had anticipated.